Hey, today I want to make a rant where I rant about a rant I made yesterday. I made a rant yesterday talking about how good guys with guns do stop bad guys with guns, regarding the Texas church shooting. And I talked about how politicians can't handle that. And then so they try to twist the narrative a little bit. Well, it seems like politicians aren't the only one. It seems like people in our own community like to twist the narrative, or maybe they're not people in our community. Maybe they're people from outside the community. But there were so many people like, oh, this guy was special because he was retired law enforcement, or he was head of security and all these other things. They were basically just falling right into that leftist trap of only special people could ever succeed with a firearm when it came down to stopping a bad guy. And I'm like, one, that's just a completely ridiculous notion. And two, this guy is none of those things. He's not retired law enforcement. He's not a head of some special security force. He's just the guy that volunteered to lead the volunteer security force at his church. You could do that. I could do that. He's not retired law enforcement or retired FBI like CNN's been saying. According to his own words and the statement put out about him, he was a volunteer deputy sheriff for 5 years back in the 80s. A volunteer deputy sheriff is someone who says, you know what, if you need somebody to help, I'll help. They are not trained law enforcement. They are not state bonded or whatever. They are just volunteers. Now, most small counties have those. A lot of large counties don't, especially not around here, because the unions don't like them. Because they're like, hey, well, why should we have some guy standing out at the end of a flooded road with a flashlight waving off traffic for free when we could have one of our officers doing that cushy job for double time and a half? So that's why I don't see it in a lot of bigger counties. But most small counties have volunteer deputies or a police reserve or, something like that, where people just volunteer. That doesn't make them retired law enforcement. It just makes them a good citizen, as far as I'm concerned. But this guy was not retired FBI, retired law enforcement. He wasn't any of those things. He is a trainer, but I think we've all seen some of the people who are trainers. We know that that's pretty much something anybody can be. And I am in no way saying he's a bad one. I'm just saying he's not some sort of god being put up on a pedestal. Now, he does own his own gun shop, so he probably gets to practice more than most. But I think most of us can practice with our carry gun enough that we could be proficient with it. So he's not some protective body sent from the tactical heavens to guard the ignorant, incompetent masses. He's just an everyday guy who volunteered with his local police department. He happens to own a gun shop. He got his training license to be a trainer, which basically it looks to me like his training experience was mostly with law enforcement agencies, which means you basically just go in and show them how not to shoot themselves in the face with their firearm. He might be the most tactical, wonderful guy in the world, but there's nothing special about him that got him that way. He didn't take some sort of special government training or anything like that. He's an everyday guy who put in the time and the effort to know how to use his gun. And he happens to be in the firearms industry. He's not some deity like the left would like you to try to believe he is. And it was really startling to me to see how many people in the gun community were actually falling into that trap. Like, thank God this was a specially highly super trained ex-spy guy who could react to this while everybody else fumbled around like morons. I didn't see anybody fumbling around like morons in that video. I saw some guy go for a gun when he probably should have went for the other guy's gun. But, 2020 hindsight, And like I say, I'm not here to critique the what happened. I'm so sick of this narrative that people got to be specially trained or special guys to actually succeed with a firearm. Little old ladies stop bad guys every day, pretty much, with a handgun. They succeed quite well. So this whole notion you got to be specially trained. And I think maybe in the comments it might be some people that catch on to this are the people that think that I went and took special training, so I'm special. And they like to think that. But it just means you might be slightly better trained. It doesn't even mean you're better at it than someone who received no training. It gives you a better chance of being good, but it doesn't mean that. So anyone could have achieved the levels this guy is. He's not anything special. He's not some government operative. He's just a guy who put in the time and effort to know how to use his gun. You could do that. I could do that. So don't fall into that trap of only special people can use guns successfully. That's a garbage argument. And when you start making it for the left, especially the trainers, I know the trainers love to grab a hold of it because then they can say, come spend $800 at my training camp so that you can be a guy like him. You don't have to do that to be a guy like him. If you want to do it, great. It's a good opportunity. It's a good thing to do. If you can afford it, go do it. But it's not required. So stop falling into that trap. Oh, and before I go, I wanted to say one other thing too. I wanted to mention one other thing. There was also someone in that chat who, I think their name was Jordan, who was like, he made some comments about what they did, and then he made a comment like, and they didn't need a 44 Magnum that shoots through glass. And then someone pointed out to him that he actually used a 357 SIG, which is actually a high performance caliber. And they're like, oh, I didn't hear about that. Blah, blah, blah. And then, reality quickly destroyed their narrative, so they had to start adjusting. And they were like, well, he didn't need that 357 SIG. A 22 would have done just as well. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are that you can definitively say something like that? That 357 SIG stopped him cold, one shot. 22 might have let him fire off 2 more rounds before he went down. Could have been 4, 5, 6 more injured or dead people because of that. So that whole notion that, oh, caliber never matters, and that trying to make that argument in this case made you look kind of stupid because, like I said, he used a 357 SIG. In fact, he used a gun very similar to this. He used a SIG P229, according to his own words. Now, this is an Elite, so it's all stainless, but, you get the picture here. And he used one that had a 357 SIG conversion barrel in it, just like this one has. So that guy, who is supposedly, who a lot of y'all are looking up to as some great gun guru, he was smart enough to use 357 SIG. He wasn't using 9mm, and so that kind of destroyed that person's argument right away. And I just loved watching them flounder as reality quickly destroyed their narrative or their opinion. It was just hysterical. So caliber does matter. So that's the 2 points of this video. You can do everything that guy did. You can be every bit as good as he was. And it really doesn't take anything other than just putting in a little time and a little practice. And also, if you can carry a more powerful gun, carry a more powerful gun. Because the better the gun, the more likely you are to get that one-shot stop.
Oops.
Go ahead. It's a lady at 46 South Road. 46 South Road. Greenfield. Station 1 call, three-tone that please. 10-4. Got the 4 to go to that location also. This is 1-9, is that correct?